I slapped the fake heiress hard, and my brothers actually teamed up to throw me into a mental hospital. Chapter 1. I was sent to a mental hospital for slapping the fake heiress. I admitted that slap was loud. Smack. A crisp sound echoed through the living room, slicing through the tension like thunder on a summer night. I watched her fall to the ground, clutching her cheek with an expression of disbelief. Tears welled in her eyes almost instantly, her voice trembling like a frightened rabbit. Big sister? How could you hit me? I said nothing. I simply stared down at her, my gaze calm. It wasn't because she wore my dress without asking. It wasn't even because she used my lipstick to scrawl "crazy bitch" across the mirror. No. It was because she stepped on the last thing my mother ever gave me, my necklace, and called it an accident. What the hell? Why did you hit her? My eldest brother, Shimohan, stormed over like a thundercloud. He grabbed my wrist in anger. She's your sister. Whose sister? I raised an eyebrow. Mine? He froze. I looked at all three of them, Shimohan, Shimozhou, and Shimoyuan, the three brothers I had grown up calling my own. At that moment, every single one of them stood by her side. The fake heiress, White Wan. She cowered in the corner of the couch, tears falling like pearls. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have borrowed your clothes. Oh, now you remember I'm your sister? I sneered. Enough, second brother growled. You've really lost your mind this time, haven't you? I laughed silently. I was the real daughter of the Shi family, born and raised in this house. 3 years ago, I got into a car accident. My memory fractured into pieces. They said I wasn't well. They sent me to therapists, recovery centers, mental clinics, and when I came back, she was here, White Wan, a so-called secret daughter from some mistress my parents supposedly had before they died. They told me to be a good older sister and care for her. I believed them until she stole my things, lied through her teeth, manipulated the brothers, and slowly replaced me. When I spoke up, I was called delusional, a paranoid psycho. I still remember what my eldest brother said that day. You need treatment. Again. You mean another trip to the madhouse? I asked with a smile. It's called a mental wellness center, said my third brother. Correcting me, I said nothing more. I went upstairs, packed a bag. The next morning, I was gone. The place looked nice enough. White walls, wide hallways, soft lighting. CCTV cameras in every corner, staff in white coats and tight smiles. But the one I remembered most was the man who received me, Dr. Ki Jihuan, late 30s, sharp suit, clean cut, and glasses that made him look like he walked straight out of some cool medical drama. Double quotes. Hello, Miss Shi, he said as he flipped through my file. His voice was calm, pleasant. This isn't your first time here, is it? I sat back in the chair, legs crossed. Nope, but it's not my idea. He looked at me, amusement dancing in his eyes. Then what would you like to talk about today? I thought for a moment. I want to know how to legally beat someone up and not get labeled crazy for it. His brow lifted slightly. For that, you might need to learn some acting. I blinked. He continued with a half smile. Real crazies don't get called crazy. Only the ones who don't blend in do. I stared at him for a moment, then grinned. You're kind of interesting, Dr. Ki. You're not bad either, Miss Shi. He pushed up his glasses. Let's set up a treatment plan. I didn't hate the place. Surprisingly, I was doing quite well. 3 meals a day, people who actually listened, and no one calling me insane for speaking my mind. There were daily classes, psychology, emotional control, behavioral tactics. I joined a drama therapy group and learned how to look gentle and pitiful. While being sharp as a knife, the patients were a riot. One guy thought he was a Martian prince. Others played along like it was real. An auntie dressed like an empress and held daily court, banishing anyone who ignored her orders. Honestly, they were more sincere than most normal people I'd met outside. I wasn't in a rush to leave. Then, one day, Dr. Ki called me in for a session. He looked at me and said calmly, Your family's coming to take you home. I raised an eyebrow. So soon? You've been too well behaved, he said with a hint of amusement. No one believes you're mentally ill anymore. I stood and walked over to his desk. Can I stay a bit longer? He shook his head. Your performance belongs on a bigger stage now. I laughed. He was right. The real show was just beginning. Black Rolls-Royce waited outside the hospital gate. My eldest brother, Shimohan, had come in person. Black suit. Sharp jawline, the same cold face as ever. I got into the car, smiling sweetly. Brother, I'm home. He kept his eyes on the road. I hope you won't let us down again. I lowered my gaze, voice soft. I'll be good. My reflection in the window was serene. Pretty features. Quiet eyes. Not a hint of madness. I was the perfect obedient little sister now, with claws well hidden, and none of them had a clue. Chapter 2. The mental hospital didn't cure madness, it taught strategy. They thought the mental hospital would break me instead. It rebuilt me from the moment I arrived. I knew this place wasn't meant to cure people, it was meant to contain them. But what they didn't expect was that inside these walls, people learned how to wear masks better than anyone outside ever could. It took me less than a week to stop resisting and start watching. Observation is everything in a place. Like this. The first rule I learned: don't act normal. That's suspicious. Normal people don't land in places like this. You had to walk a fine line, enough quirks to pass, not enough to be restrained. So I adjusted. Smiled politely. Said odd but harmless things. Do you think clouds ever get tired of floating? Sometimes I wonder if mirrors remember the faces they've seen. Everyone nodded thoughtfully. That's deep, someone would say. Poetic, said another, but no one called me crazy. Quickly found my place in the social food chain. The queen of the ward was Auntie Chen 62, diagnosed with paranoid delusions and absolutely convinced she was the reincarnation of an ancient empress. Everyone called her Your Majesty. I curtsied the first time we met and said, "It's an honor to serve." She loved me instantly. Sharp girl, she declared. Better than that wailing concubine who dared question my will. I made friends fast. There was Joe Lee, the Martian prince, who insisted a spaceship would return for him any day now. He taught me how to use chopsticks to channel cosmic energy. And Mia, soft-spoken girl who hadn't spoken in weeks until I complimented her origami phoenix. She started giving me one every morning after that. Strange people, but real none. Of the masks, the fake tears, the twisted whispers behind smiling faces like back home, I felt safer here. Dr. Key, of course, noticed everything. We had regular therapy sessions, though they felt less like therapy and more like chess matches. He'd start with something simple. How are you feeling today? I'd answer innocently, like the moon, distant, round, occasionally full of hidden things. He'd smile and write something in his notebook. Sometimes he'd lean forward and ask, "Do you ever feel anger toward your family?" Only when I remember they sent me here instead of her, I'd reply sweetly. Her, he'd repeat. I said nothing more. Other times, he'd bring up what happened that day, the slap. As they called it, you reacted with violence. Why? I tilted my head. If someone poisons your tea and says it's a joke, are you supposed to laugh or call an ambulance? He was quiet for a while, then he chuckled. Your metaphors are improving. I've had practice. He set down his pen. You do realize pretending to be sane is not the same as healing, right? I looked him dead in the eye. I'm not pretending. I've never been insane. That was the thing. I was never the problem. My emotions were real. My pain was valid. I just didn't wrap it in pretty words and tearful apologies like White Wan did. I expressed it in a way that scared people, direct, sharp, loud. So I became the threat. She cried. I shouted. She fell to her knees. I raised my fist. She got sympathy. I got sedatives. That's when I realized this world didn't punish wrong, it punished loud. So I learned to go quiet, and in that silence, I sharpened every edge of myself. There were classes too, emotional regulation, conflict de-escalation, nonverbal communication. Most patients slept through them. I didn't. I treated every session like battle prep. How to lower your voice just enough to seem harmless. How to tilt your head to appear open instead of defensive. How to control eye contact. Too much was dominance. Too little was avoidance. Most of all, I learned to smile without showing teeth, and that became my favorite weapon. After 2 months, Dr. Key called me into his office again. "You've made remarkable progress," he said. "Thank you, doctor," I said, clasping my hands on my lap, eyes wide and grateful. He tapped his pen against the desk. "So much so that your brothers want you to come home." I blinked. Already, he looked at me carefully. "You're calm. You're articulate. You follow instructions. No outburst." "So I'm cured?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. "Then, maybe you were never sick." My lips curled. "Took you long enough to figure it out?" He didn't look offended. If anything, he looked impressed. "Do you want to go back?" he asked. I stood. "No." He raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "Because out there, people wear masks. And if I take mine off, they call me insane." He nodded slowly. "Then wear the mask. But this time, make it yours." I paused at the door. "Thank you, Dr. Key." He didn't look up. "Don't thank me yet. Go show them what a real recovery looks like." I packed my things that night, a suitcase filled with neatly folded clothes, perfectly organized. On top, I placed my final origami phoenix from May. Underneath, the notebook where I wrote down every tactic, every lesson, every manipulation I had observed. When the nurse walked me to the gate, I smiled politely. The kind of smile that made people relax. Shimohan's car waited outside again. This time, I walked toward it like a model student, heels clicking against the pavement, hair combed, posture perfect. He opened the car door, didn't say a word. Neither did I. Not until we were 10 minutes into the drive. "Thank you for bringing me home." "Brother," I said softly. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "I hope you've changed." I tilted my head, voice syrupy sweet. "Of course. I'm much better now." He glanced at me. Suspicious, but not enough to stop trusting. And that was fine. Let him doubt. Let him guess. Because from now on, I would smile when I destroyed them. Quiet. Pretty. Controlled. Just like they wanted. Just like I learned. Chapter 3. I came home obedient. But the fake heiress got nervous. The she mansion hadn't changed. Tall white gates, polished marble floors, elegant chandeliers that glittered with sterile luxury. But as I stepped through the doors, I realized I had changed. The walls used to feel cold. Now they just felt quiet, like a stage before curtain call. A maid greeted me at the entrance, bowing with mechanical precision. "Welcome home, Miss Shi." Miss Shi. Not Miss White. Not Miss Wan Wan. Good, at least someone here remembered who the real daughter was. I followed her to the living room. The 3 brothers were waiting. Mohan sat in the center like a CEO out of a drama. Black suit, black eyes, black heart. Shimo Joe leaned on the armrest, casually dressed, handsome in a celebrity kind of way. Shimoyuan stood by the bookshelf, glasses on, arms crossed, his permanent expression of moral superiority still intact. I gave them my most obedient smile. "Hello, brothers. I'm home." They exchanged glances. Not warm, but not hostile either. Shimohan was the first to speak. "We hope you've learned something this time." "I have," I said, eyes lowered. I was too emotional before. I've been working on it. Shimo Zhou raised an eyebrow. "You seem calmer." "I've been practicing mindfulness," I replied sweetly. "Breathing techniques, emotional regulation, healthy communication, silence." Even Shimoyuan looked confused, like they were waiting for me to explode, cry, or demand an apology. I did none of those. Instead, I lowered my head and said, "I'm sorry for the trouble I caused." They had no idea how to respond. Perfect. White. Wan entered a moment later, dressed in a flowing cream dress, her hair curled delicately like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale. When she saw me, her lips parted. In mock surprise, "Sister, you're back?" I smiled at her. "Of course. Didn't you miss me?" Her fingers tensed slightly at her side, but she quickly regained her composure. "I was worried about you," she said softly, stepping closer. "I even visited the hospital. But they said you weren't taking visitors." "Oh." I tilted my head. "How kind of you. I didn't know you cared so much." She blinked. "Of course I do. We're family." Behind me, I could feel Shimohan watching us both, his gaze calculating. I kept smiling. Let them think we were reconciling. Let them relax. That night, I was given my old bedroom back. Monwon's things had already been moved out. Interesting. I ran my fingers along the edge of my desk. Still the same scratch on the corner. My books were in order. My drawers untouched. But my mirror? Cracked thin spiderweb lines at the edge. Was that lipstick? A faint smear of red remained. Crazy BDCH, asterisk I. Smiled. Wan must have thought I'd never come back. The next morning I made breakfast. Not because I had to, but because it was disarming. People don't suspect the girl making pancakes to be plotting revenge. I wore a soft blue cardigan, tied my hair in a low ponytail, and hummed as I cooked. When Wamlin entered the kitchen, she nearly tripped. "You're cooking?" "Mm-hmm," I said without looking at her. Figured I'd be helpful around the house. She sat down, cautiously. The table already had plates of eggs, toast, fruit. When the brothers came down, they all froze. Shimoyuan narrowed his eyes. "You made this?" "Yes," I said with a gentle smile. "Want some?" Shimojo took a bite, chewing slowly. "Tastes good." "Thank you." I beamed. Shimohan didn't eat. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I met his gaze without flinching. Let him stare. I could wear this mask all day. But Wan? She was crumbling. Every time I smiled. She TENSED. Every time I helped with chores. Her fingers twitched. Every time the brothers praised me. Her eyes darkened just a bit more. She wasn't used to competition, especially not from the girl she helped institutionalize. 3 days after my return, she made her first move. She waited until we were alone in the hallway. "You're acting strange," she whispered. "I'm better now," I said innocently. "Didn't you hear? I've been cured." Her eyes narrowed. "You're faking it." I stepped closer, dropping the sweetness. "So are you." She flinched. I leaned in, voice low. "Do you know what they teach in mental hospitals, Wan?" She didn't respond. "They teach us how to smile when we're furious, how to speak softly when we want to scream, how to wait quietly, patiently, until the right moment." I brushed past her, whispering one last thing. "Guess whose moment is coming?" That night, I passed by Shimohan's study and heard voices inside. "She's different," he said. "I told you." Kim Ouyuan's reply. "She's been through a lot. Don't pressure her." "You're saying we were wrong?" Mohan asked, his voice low. No one answered. I smirked. Just a little more time. They would doubt, then regret. Then beg, and I'd smile while they did. Chapter 4. I went east when they said east, but somehow the fake heiress went softer than May thought following orders would bore me. But as it turned out, obedience was a performance, and I was born to perform. Wake up at 6. Done. I even brewed coffee before anyone else was up. Wear something appropriate. I showed up in a modest white blouse and pleated skirt that made me look like a schoolgirl, fresh out of a moral education pamphlet. Stay away from Wan. I nodded and replied, "Of course." I don't want her to feel uncomfortable. Not once did I resist. Not once did I contradict. I went east when they said east, smiled when they frowned, lowered my head when they raised their voices, and somehow, Wan started breaking down before I did. It began subtly. At dinner. She dropped her fork. Then her spoon. then an entire bowl of soup onto the floor. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, she stammered, eyes wide with panic. I was seated right next. To her, I calmly pulled out a napkin and began mopping up the mess. It's okay, Wanwan, I said gently. You've been nervous lately. Is everything all right? Shimoyuan glanced up from his tablet. You do seem distracted lately. Wanwan's lips trembled. Maybe I'm tired. Shimojo raised an eyebrow. Didn't you just get back from a spa retreat? Wanwan's face went pale. I smiled into my soup dot the next day. She accidentally deleted a batch of important files from Shimohan's laptop. She cried for 15 minutes. I didn't mean to. I thought it was my folder. Shimohan's expression was stone. You opened a business document labeled confidential and just clicked delete? I was trying to help. He didn't yell. He didn't scold her. He just walked away, but the silence was louder than shouting. Wanwan sat frozen at the table. Long after he was gone, I poured her a glass of water. You really should be more careful. He doesn't take mistakes well. She stared at me, hands trembling. I kept playing my roll-soft voice. Even tone, empty eyes with a hint of, I'm trying my best. The household staff loved me. She's really changed. I overheard the housekeeper whisper, she's like a little angel now. Even Shimoyuan, the most skeptical of the three, had started to lower his guard. I heard you've been reading again. He said one morning, I find psychology fascinating. I replied, flipping a page with delicate fingers. Especially behavioral studies. He nodded approvingly. Good, it's important to understand yourself. I smiled. If only he knew I understood everyone else far better than they did themselves. But Wanwan? She couldn't keep up. One afternoon, she cornered me in the garden. Her smile was too wide, too tight. What are you doing? She asked in a low hiss. Watering the flowers, I said, tipping the watering can over a rose bush. You're trying to turn them against me. I blinked innocently. Who? The brothers, the staff, everyone. Oh, you mean the people who used to think I was a ticking time bomb. I chuckled. How could I possibly manipulate them? I'm just a recovering patient, remember? She gritted her teeth. This isn't over. I leaned closer and whispered, Then you'd better hurry. You're running out of room to lose. That night, I pretended to trip on the stairs just enough to bruise my ankle. When the brothers rushed over, I brushed them off with a weak smile. I'm fine. Just clumsy, I guess. Shimojo looked concerned. Wanwan didn't push you, right? I widened my eyes. What? No! Why would you think that? Shimoyuan adjusted his glasses. We've all noticed she's been acting a bit unstable lately. I stayed silent. Let their imagination run. Shimohan said nothing, but I saw the way his jaw tightened. Wanwan must have sensed the shift. The next morning, she tried to outdo me. She made breakfast before I did. Burnt eggs, undercooked toast, cold coffee. Everyone was polite. No one ate much. By evening, she offered to massage Shimohan's shoulders. He refused. She asked Shimoyuan if he needed help with research. He declined. She asked Shimojo if he wanted a partner. For a new ad campaign. He gave her a script and said, Learn your lines this time. Her hands were shaking as she left the room. I watched from the balcony, sipping tea. Poor thing, I said softly, trying so hard to hold on to something that was never hers. Later that night, she snapped. I was brushing my hair when she barged into my room. Tell me what you want. She shouted. I looked at her in the mirror. I want what was mine to begin with. They chose me, she screamed. They loved me. They tolerated you, I corrected, and they blamed me. You don't deserve their forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. She stared at me, eyes wide, chest heaving. You're insane, she whispered. I stood and walked toward her, calm, controlled. I stopped just inches from her face. No, I said, I'm better. She ran. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard quiet murmurs down the hall. The brothers were talking. Something's wrong with Wanwan, Mojo said. She's spiraling. Moiwan added. Silence. Then. We might have misjudged things. Shimohan finally said. I smiled in the dark. Checkmate wasn't far now. Chapter 5. Dr. Key came for a home visit, and the fake heiress tried to diagnose me first. I wasn't expecting him. When the front door opened and Dr. Ki Jaewon stepped into the Shi family mansion, it felt like the beginning of a plot twist. I hadn't written. Tall, neatly dressed in a gray suit. Calm as ever, but his eyes? They scanned the foyer like a battlefield, and everyone in it was a possible patient. Dr. Key. Shimohan looked mildly surprised. You didn't mention you were coming. I like unannounced visits, he replied smoothly. It reveals more. Of course he did. That man could smell secrets like a wolf sniffing blood. I came down the stairs slowly, hands folded, face soft. Dr. Key, I said in a gentle tone. You came all this way? His gaze met mine, unreadable as always. Just checking on my favorite patient. Oh, I smiled. I thought you didn't do favorites. He shrugged. You were memorable. Behind me, Wanwan appeared at the top of the stairs, eyes sharp with alarm. Doctor, she said, walking down quickly. Oh, are you here for a follow-up? That's great. She's been acting strange lately. Shimoyuan frowned. Wanwan. But she kept going. Like, she says polite things, but sometimes I feel like she's hiding something. And yesterday, she was talking to herself in the mirror. I blinked slowly. Correction, I said. I was reciting a poem. She's doing it again, Wanwan hissed. Look how calmly she lies. Dr. Key turned to her, tone smooth as silk. Miss White, are you trained in clinical observation? Wanwan faltered. I just care about her well-being. Dr. Key nodded once. Then I'll handle the assessment. I nearly laughed. We sat in the sunroom, me on the cushioned bench. He across from me in a high-backed chair, like a judge preparing to sentence a princess. So he began, flipping open his notebook. How have you been? Better, I replied. Quieter, more. Filtered. He raised an eyebrow. Filtered? I don't say everything I think anymore. I edit for the audience. A small smile tugged at his lips. That's progress. Or performance. Maybe both. He scribbled something down. I leaned forward slightly. You're not here just for me, are you? Partially, he admitted. But also to observe your environment. I glanced toward the glass doors where Wanwan was pacing outside like a feral cat. She doesn't like me much lately. I said she didn't like you before either, he replied calmly. She simply pretended better. After our session, he requested to speak with the brothers. They gathered in the study. I didn't follow, but Wanwan did. She lingered near the door like a spy from a cartoon, ear tilted, fingers twitching. I sat in the hallway with a cup of tea, watching. 10 minutes later, Dr. Key stepped out. He saw me, offered the faintest nod. Then he turned to Wanwan. Would you mind speaking with me privately? She blinked. Me? Just a few questions. She hesitated, then smiled too brightly. Of course. They disappeared into the sitting room. The door closed with a soft click. I waited. 15 minutes passed, then 20, when the door finally opened. Wanwan walked out looking pale, her lips pressed in a tight line. I didn't ask what he said. I didn't need to. But I saw her hand shaking. That was enough. Dr. Key left shortly after. He gave me a simple phrase as he passed. Stay steady. I gave him a smile. I never fall. That night, the house was oddly quiet. Shimohan didn't come down for dinner. Shimojo looked distracted. Shimoyuan kept fidgeting with his glasses. And Wanwan? She barely touched her food. At one point, she stood up abruptly. I'm not hungry, she muttered and walked away. The brothers exchanged a glance. No one stopped her. I stirred my soup gently. Let silence do. But talking later that evening, I passed by Mohan's study again. The door wasn't closed all the way. I heard Dr. Key's voice from a speakerphone. Her responses were controlled, appropriate, her insight intact, her affect consistent. You're saying she's fine? Mohan's voice asked, uncertain. I'm saying she's adaptive, Dr. Key clarified, and more emotionally intelligent than most of your family. A pause. What about the other one? Moyuan asked. Dr. Key's tone dropped. She masks differently, but under pressure, cracks are showing. I'd advise a formal evaluation, quietly. I didn't listen further. I didn't need to. The brothers were finally starting to see what I had seen from the beginning. Not all monsters. Scream. Some cry. Some act sweet. Some call themselves your sister while pushing you into the fire. But monsters are monsters, no matter how soft their voice. And now, the man who trained me to smile while burning was on my side. Wanwan didn't stand a chance. Chapter 6. My brothers started to doubt her, but couldn't admit they were wrong. Guilt is a quiet thing. It doesn't scream or beg. It seeps in, one whisper at a time, one sideways glance, one memory. They tried too hard not to recall. That's how. It started with silence. After Dr. Key's visit, the brothers grew cautious. Not with me, with her. She, Mohan, the iceberg, started watching Wanwan more closely. When she faked a cough to skip dinner, he didn't even blink. When she offered to help with reports, he waved her away. Mojo, the flirt, stopped joking around her, and when she asked to be in his new ad campaign, he didn't even pretend to consider it. Shimoyuan, the professor, gave her psychological distance. He didn't correct her anymore, didn't ask for her thoughts, didn't even argue, just disengaged. None of them confronted her. Not directly, because doing that would mean confronting themselves and admitting that maybe, just maybe, they had believed the wrong sister all along. One morning, I passed Shimohan in the hallway. He stopped me with a single word. Wait. I turned slowly. Yes. He looked at me for a moment, like trying to read a language he didn't speak fluently. You really don't blame us? I smiled softly. Why would I? You only believed what you saw. His jaw tightened, and what I saw, I continued, was myself screaming while everyone clapped for the quiet girl with the tears. He didn't respond. I walked away before he could. I knew that silence would hurt him more than anything I could ever say. One could feel it, the shift she was. No longer the center of attention, no longer the girl surrounded by affection and instinctive defense. Now she was just, not ignored. Exactly. But not protected either, and that terrified her. So she did what desperate people do. She escalated. That evening, during a family dinner, she accidentally spilled hot tea on me. The moment it hit my arm, the room fell silent. I gasped softly, not from pain, but from how perfectly predictable it was. Wanwan's eyes went wide. Oh no! I didn't mean. Before she could finish, Shimoyuan stood up, took a napkin, and gently blotted my sleeve. Shimogyo moved my cup aside and replaced it with a new one. Mohan didn't say a word, but the look he gave Wanwan was colder than anything I'd seen in months. She stood frozen, breath caught in her throat. I'm fine, I said calmly. Accidents happen. I could feel her trembling beside me, because this time, no one rushed to defend her. Later that night, she came to my room. Her voice was hoarse. What did you do to them? I looked up from my book. Do? They're treating me like I'm a stranger. I tilted my head. Strange. I remember being treated like a stranger in my own home too. Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. She wasn't sad. She was unraveling. Stop playing innocent, she spat. You're manipulating them. No, I said quietly. I'm giving them the chance to open their eyes. What they see is up to them. She turned and stormed out. I didn't stop her. I didn't need to. I wasn't trying to win. I was just waiting for the moment they'd look at me. Not like I was broken or volatile or fragile, but like they remembered. I was theirs first. Their real sister, their blood, their guilt. That moment came sooner than I thought, Dot. It was late. The house was quiet. I was in the kitchen getting water when Shimo Joe walked in. He stood there for a second before saying, "I watched the footage." I blinked. Footage? The surveillance from that day. The slap. I stayed still. "They always said you attacked her out of nowhere," he said slowly. "But she stepped on your necklace." Then smiled. I smiled too, tired. Sad. Vindicated. "I know," I said. "I was there." He looked at me long and hard. Then he whispered, "We failed you." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The next morning, Wawan tried to serve breakfast again. No one touched it. Instead, they all waited until I came downstairs and sat down. She stood by the table, hands fidgeting, eyes flickering with desperate energy, and when I smiled and picked up my spoon, everyone else began eating too. She was invisible, and she knew it. That night, I stood in front of the mirror in my room. Same face. Same features, but something about my eyes had changed. They weren't soft anymore. They were still balanced. And for the first time in years, they looked like they belonged in this house. Not just tolerated, but anchored. Chapter 7. I played the good girl while plotting payback and the villains. Couldn't sleep. There's a particular kind of thrill in pretending to be calm while planning chaos, pretending to forgive while sharpening knives, pretending to be the good girl while quietly burning your enemies alive. I smiled a lot that week, helped with dinner, watered the garden, checked in on my brothers, greeted the maids with warmth. Everyone said the same thing behind my back. She's changed. So much. She's a model daughter now. She must really be healed. But the truth? I wasn't healed. I was patient. And that, ironically, made me more dangerous than ever. Wan didn't sleep well anymore. I could tell. The dark circles under her eyes deepened every day. She stopped wearing pastel and started wearing beige. As if dulling herself would make her invisible to judgment, she smiled too wide at dinner, laughed half a beat too late. And flinched every time I entered a room. I never touched her, never raised my voice. But I was everywhere. One day, she found her necklace chain twisted into a perfect noose on her dresser. Another day, her phone played. Back a voice memo she didn't remember recording, just her own voice saying, "They don't love you. They never did. You're a stand-in, a ghost in someone else's life." She claimed she didn't make the recording. No one believed her, not even the staff. I didn't leave notes. I didn't hack her phone, but I'd learned a long time ago in the hospital, you don't need to touch someone to destroy their mind. All you need is implication. Doubt. That pause at the wrong moment. Everything else they'll do to themselves. One evening, I helped the housekeeper organize old files in the study. Perfectly innocent, perfectly polite. While I was dusting, I found the copy of a DNA report tucked away behind an old ledger. I scanned it once. Then, again, then smiled. Wan wasn't even a confirmed daughter. There had never been a second test. Just a vague possibility. And a convenient timing. Interesting. That piece of paper didn't burn. I simply slid it back into the drawer, but just slightly. Ligned. Just enough for someone to notice. The next day, Shimoyuan asked Wan, "When was your last DNA verification done?" She blinked rapidly. "Why would you ask that?" "No reason, just curious." She didn't eat the rest of her meal. By now, even the staff avoided her. She tripped carrying a tray. No one rushed to help. She asked for tea. No one brewed it. She called for one of the drivers. He said he was off duty. Isolation is heavier than punishment, and Wan was drowning in it. She tried, desperately, to regain control. "I'm organizing a charity gala," she declared one morning at breakfast. "It's for underprivileged children." No one objected, but no one offered help either. She sent out invites, booked a venue. Bought a gown. I watched from the sidelines, sipping tea, offering soft encouragement. You're so brave to plan something like this alone, I told her. I could never handle that pressure. Her eyes narrowed. She knew it was poison disguised as praise, but she smiled anyway. The night of the gala arrived. She wore a long gold dress, curls pinned up like a princess on the verge of coronation. But when the guests arrived, there were only half as many as expected. Her PR team never showed up. The lights flickered mid-speech. The wrong background. Music played twice, and one of the attending reporters asked, "Miss White, how long have you been with the Shi family again?" Some sources say the DNA. Match was never confirmed. She froze. For 3 solid seconds, she said nothing. Then she smiled tightly and muttered something about technical errors. The footage made it online within the hour. I didn't leak anything. I didn't need to. I'd simply let the truth peek out from behind the curtain, just enough to let others do the rest. I watched the video with the brothers that night in the living room. Shimojo frowned. Shimoyuan sighed. Shimohan didn't speak. She's getting sloppy. Moyuan muttered. Mojo added, she's unraveling. I stayed silent, blanket over my lap, tea in my hands. So warm. So sweet. Later, I passed by Wanwan's door and heard her crying. Ugly, ragged sobs. The kind you don't want anyone to hear, but also hope someone does. I paused. Not out of pity, but because it was the first time in years. She cried without an audience. Maybe the mask was finally off. But it was too late now. She could cry. She could beg. But this time, no one was coming to her rescue. I returned to my room, closed the door behind me, and wrote 3 names in my journal. One Wami brothers myself, and then beside each one, a question: what do they owe me? What have they taken? And when will they pay? I'm not finished, not yet, but the house is finally quiet. Enough for them to hear me and for the first time in years. I sleep soundly. Chapter 8. The fake heiress finally broke down and called me sister. It happened on a Tuesday. Of all the days for a mask to crack, Tuesday seemed so average. So predictable. So ordinary. But breakdowns don't care about aesthetics. Come when you're out of excuses, out of stories, and out of people to lie to. And Wanwan? She had officially run out of everything. The day started with silence. She didn't come down for breakfast, didn't text anyone, didn't call the maids, didn't even fake a headache, which had become her signature excuse. Shimoyuan asked if anyone had seen her. No, I said gently. Should I check on her? He hesitated, then nodded. I went upstairs, knocked twice on her door. No answer. I opened it. She was sitting on the floor beside her bed, knees pulled to her chest, hair messy and unbrushed. Her eyes were bloodshot, cheeks blotchy, and her lips moved without sound, like she was still trying to explain something. Even if no one was listening anymore, for a second, I stood there in silence, watching. She didn't notice me until I closed the door behind me. She flinched violently, looking up. And when her eyes met mine, something in her shattered. Sister. That word again, but this time, it was different. No sarcasm. No performative sweetness. Just raw desperation. I said nothing. She crawled forward a few inches, grabbing at my wrist like I was a rope dangling above a pit. I'm sorry, she whispered. Please help me. I looked down at her. At the girl who had once smiled so sweetly while pushing me into madness. The girl who wore my clothes, stole my memories, and played the victim better than any actress on screen. And now here, she was shaking, crying, alone. I don't know who I am anymore, she said. They don't talk to me. They don't even look at me. That must be hard, I replied softly. Her grip tightened. You don't understand. I do, I interrupted, kneeling slowly so we were eye to eye. I understand more than anyone. She blanked. I know what it's like to scream and have no one listen. To beg and be called manipulative. To hurt and be labeled dangerous. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, gently, But the difference is, you did it to yourself. Her breath caught. I never lied, I continued. You just hated that I didn't pretend. Her tears flowed harder now. I didn't mean for things to go so far, she sobbed. I wanted to belong. And you did. I stood. Brushing off my skirt. For a while. She stared at the floor. I'll leave, she whispered. If that's what you want. I'll disappear. I walked to the door and paused. That's not my decision, I said. It's theirs now. She didn't leave her room for the rest of the day, but the house noticed, the staff whispered. The brothers noticed, and by dinner there was only one question circling the table like a ghost. What do we do with her? No one said it aloud, but everyone felt it, even me. After dinner, Shimohan asked to speak with me privately. We sat in the study, the door half shut, the lights dim. He didn't look at me at first. I reviewed everything again, he said quietly. The past 6 months, her reports, her records, even the footage, and she manipulated us. I didn't respond. He looked at me. For the first time in years, not like a problem, not like a burden, but like a person. A sister. I'm sorry, Sheng Sheng. I didn't cry, didn't smile. I just nodded. Sometimes. That's all you need to say. That night, Wan Wan knocked on my door. I opened it to find her in a hoodie and jeans, bags packed by her feet. I need help, she said softly. Maybe, I said. I'm going to check into a clinic, somewhere quiet. For real this time. I stepped aside, letting her in. She looked around my room, her eyes pausing on the photo of my mother on the nightstand. I never hated you, she whispered. I never believed you, I replied. She left the next morning. No big goodbyes. No. Dramatics. Just silence. A taxi. In a house that finally felt like it could breathe again. Later that day, I found something in my drawer, a small box. Inside, my mother's broken necklace. Repaired. Polished. Perfectly intact. There was no note. But there didn't need to be. People think victories come with cheers and confetti, but the quiet ones? The ones where your enemies leave with their heads down, no words left to twist, no lies left to spin? Those are the victories you feel. And as I sat on the windowsill that night, legs tucked to my chest, moonlight casting shadows on my floor, I finally let myself smile, because the house was mine again, and so was the truth. Chapter 9. My brothers started to spoil me, and the real favorite finally returned it. Started with breakfast. Not mine. Theirs. Because for the first time in years, they made it for me. I woke up to the smell of toast, eggs, and was that blueberry jam? When I stepped into the kitchen, all 3 of them were their. She Mohan, sleeves rolled up, was flipping eggs with the same intensity he used to sign. $billion contracts. Shimojo was slicing strawberries with the precision of a film editor splicing scenes. Shimo Yuan, the perfectionist, was reading the ingredients on a milk carton like it was a thesis. I stood there, arms crossed. Okay, what did you guys break? All 3 turned to me at once. Sit, Mohan. Ordered. Eat first. I raised an eyebrow. Mojo pulled out a chair. We figured it's about time we started acting like brothers again. Moyuan pushed his glasses up. Or at least stop acting like strangers. I sat slowly, watching them like they were wild animals trying to earn my trust with fruit offerings. You do realize it's a little late for pancakes, right? Mohan handed me a glass of juice. Better late than never. I took a bite of toast, perfectly golden, still warm. Okay, I said. You're forgiven for exactly 10 minutes, Mojo grinned. Then we better make those 10 minutes count. From that morning on, something shifted. It wasn't grand or dramatic. But it was steady. Consistent. They remembered how I liked my tea 3 sugars. No milk. They stopped calling me trouble behind my back. They let me finish my sentences without that guarded look in their eyes. For the first time in forever, I wasn't being monitored. I was being seen. Mo Yuan asked if I wanted to join his book club. Mojo offered me a cameo in his next commercial. Mohan gave me access to the family investment fund. Pick something, he said. A company. A project. Anything you want to run. I blinked. You're giving me a portfolio? You deserve it. I stared at him. This was the man who once said I wasn't mentally stable enough to manage a diary. What if I lose money? Then we lose it together. They didn't say it directly. Didn't sit me down for some teary apology montage. They showed it in gestures. In the way they made room for me in meetings. In the way they included me in decisions. In the way they didn't flinch when I raised my voice, even if I did it just to test them. Once, I accidentally knocked over a glass. During dinner. The sound was sharp. Old me would have been accused of an episode. This time, Mojo laughed. That's what we get for buying those slippery plates. No one looked nervous. No one walked on eggshells. It was the first time I felt like a person, not a ticking time bomb. I started calling them by their nicknames again. Big Bro. Second. Bro. Nerd Bro. Mojo pretended to hate it. God, I'm too hot to be called Second Bro. Call me Prince of Entertainment or something. No. Thanks, I reply. That sounds like a B-rated web drama. Even Moywan cracked a smile. One afternoon, I walked into Mohan's office. He was going over documents. Frowning like usual, I was thinking. I said, I want to open a gallery. He looked up. Gallery? Not a big one. Something small. Local artists. Community vibe. Maybe even mental health themes. He leaned back in his chair, watching me. You want to build something. I nodded. Then we'll build it. That night, I stood in the garden with a cup of hot chocolate. The wind was light, and the house behind me glowed softly through the windows. I thought about the girl I was just months ago. The one who screamed to be heard, who cried behind locked doors, who tried to be good and failed, because no one believed. Her version of good could exist. And now I was the favorite again. No, not again. For the first time, because this time, I wasn't earning it through silence or sacrifice. This time they chose me knowing everything. My scars, my anger, my madness, my truth. And still, they chose me. I heard footsteps. Mohan joined me outside, jacket over his shoulder. You okay? He asked. Just thinking. He was quiet for a second. Then, I know words don't fix everything. They don't, I agreed. But I'm still sorry. For everything. I looked at him. Really looked. The brother who once thought I was unstable, the man who now handed me half the empire without blinking. I'm still angry, I said. Good, he replied. You're allowed to be. I sipped my drink. I'll get over it eventually. Take your time. He bumped my shoulder with his and for once, it didn't hurt. The fake heiress was gone. The mask was off. The war was over, and I wasn't just back, I was home. Chapter 10. Home. Officially, the thing about closure is it doesn't always come with applause. No fireworks, no confetti. No dramatic background music swelling at just the right moment. Sometimes closure is quiet, like a door closing gently behind you, or a place finally feeling like it fits your skin. For me, closure came in the form of a key. Mohan handed it to me one morning, a small silver key on a navy ribbon. What's this? I asked. Your studio, he said. Signed a lease yesterday. It's under your name. I stared at him. He wasn't smiling. Not in the performative way he used to, just calm. Sure, you're giving me my own place? I'm giving you a start. I took the key and held. It tight in my palm. It was cold. Solid. Real. Like I finally had something that was mine. And only mine. The studio was perfect. Sunlight pulled through large windows. The walls were still bare, the floor a little dusty, but it felt right. I walked the space barefoot, imagining where I'd hang paintings, where I'd place a reading corner, where the coffee machine would sit. I knelt near the far wall, pulled out a marker, and wrote a word no one would ever see behind the bookshelf. Reclaimed, because that's what I'd done. I didn't just survive this house. I didn't just return. I reclaimed everything they once took from me. My room, my name, my place, my voice. Brothers helped paint the walls on a Sunday. Mo Yuan insisted on taping everything perfectly. Mojo got paint on his hair and didn't notice until I posted it online. Moham painted in silence, methodical and focused. But at the end of the day, they all stood back and looked at the mess we'd made like it was a masterpiece. And for us, it was. That night, we had dinner together, just the four of us. No pretense. No tension. Just laughter and shared glances. At one point, Moyuan asked, "Do you miss her?" I didn't have to ask who he meant. I thought about it. Then shook my head. "I miss who I pretended she was," I said. "Not who she really was." They nodded. That was enough. Before bed, I walked through the garden one last time. The place where I used to escape, where I used to hide. But tonight, I didn't feel like a ghost haunting it. I felt like the owner of it, someone who'd earned the peace now blooming in it. As I passed the rose bush near the fountain, something glinted beneath the leaves. I knelt down. It was a tiny silver hairpin, one I'd lost years ago. I held it in my hand and laughed softly. Even the garden had started giving things back. Back in my room, I turned off the lights, laid on my bed, stared at the ceiling, and realized I didn't feel like I had to prove anything anymore. Not my sanity, not my loyalty, not my worth. They knew me now, the real me, and they stayed. That's what home is. Not a house. Not a bloodline. It's the people who choose you after knowing the worst parts. And for the first time since I could remember, I wasn't trying to survive my family. I was part of it. And